So my name is Bonnie. I do the night tours here. This is my partner Tammy. She also does night tours here. We've been doing this for a long time. I've been with the museum 16 years, and I've been doing ghost hunting for 14. So if you have any questions about anything tonight, just ask. Welcome to the Heritage Museum. We are also known as the May Stringer House. Now the name May Stringer is May-Stringer because the two men that built this house at different times were named May and Stringer. Everybody thinks May's the first name, Stringer's the last. That is not the case. You will be allowed in 12 of the 14 rooms this evening. All right, so the first 4 rooms were the parlor right there, the dining room next to it, and the 2 bedrooms directly above it. None of this existed prior to 1880. And the reason I'm telling you this is that the front porch of the original house was right here. And right where this young lady standing was the scene of the first ride-by shooting in Hernando County history. A man was on his way to visit the current occupant of the house. This occurred in 1866. As he climbed the front steps, someone rode by on horseback and shot him dead right on the front steps. Now this was right after the Civil War was over. Things here in the Deep South were pretty ugly. The South had lost the war, the slaves were freed, the economy was in the crapper. It was just not a good time. And the black versus white part of it was even worse. There was a vigilante group formed here in Brooksville. Now this is early days, folks, before the KKK. And this group of vigilantes were all white men, and they decided they were going to run the city of Brooksville. Well, they'd heard a rumor around town that a black man was courting a white man. Oh. That to them was the ultimate sin. So they went to this poor black man's house in the middle of the night, dragged him out of bed and hung him from a tree. Over the next 12 months, the retaliation included 11 of these 12 men being killed by various means, and number 11 was on the front steps of the May Stringer house. So we've been involved in some pretty bad juju going all the way back to the Civil War. Between 1866 and 1880, there were 40 murders in Brooksville. And it wasn't that big a town. Most of them were never prosecuted. That tells you exactly who or what was in charge in this area. Now we start the tour on the old part of the house, so come this way, please. All right, so in 1855, John May came down here to Florida. He brought his wife Marina and their little baby girl. He bought all the land that uptown Brooksville sits on today and started a plantation here. He built the first 4-room house for his family to live in. They moved in. Marina gave birth to another little baby girl, and 1 year later, at the age of 25, John May died in this house. He had what they call consumption. We call it tuberculosis today. But back then, they didn't have the doctors and medicine that they have now. If you got something this serious, it was almost always fatal. So John dies, leaves his 25-year-old wife here with 2 babies, a bunch of slaves, and a whole plantation to run. Marina runs the whole show all by herself for the next 9 years until the Civil War was over. Wow. Now when the war was over, this guy right here, get a real good look at him. If you capture anything tonight, it's going to be this guy. His name was Frank Saxon. He was a local boy, and he had gone off to fight for the Confederacy in the war. He was wounded in Perryville, Kentucky, and taken prisoner by the Union Army. He spent the rest of the war in a prisoner of war camp outside of Atlanta. Now when the war was over, the Union Army didn't know what to do with all these Confederate prisoners, so they just opened the gates of these prison camps and told them all to go home. Frank walked back to Brooksville from Atlanta. How many of you think you could possibly walk that long?
Nope.
Not at all.
Not at
I can barely
all.
walk from the front door of the mailbox.
There you go. So the fact that he made it back to Brooksville alive made him a big local celebrity. Well, his first order of business was to find a rich widow. Guess who that was? Marina May. He courted her, married her, and moved right into this house. Now overnight, he's a wealthy man. Because in those days, when a man married a woman who owned property, her property instantly becomes his property. Amazing. He went on to become a judge, clerk of court, and chief of police. Oh, and he was mayor too at one point. Very, very influential guy. And his history started right here in this house. Now, as I told you outside, I've been with the museum for 16 years. I had my first paranormal experience in this house 3 weeks after I started. Sitting right out there at closing time one Saturday afternoon, I sent my 9-year-old daughter, Michelle, upstairs to turn out the lights. Now, I could hear Shelley sneakers going from room to room, but I heard a second set of footsteps, and these were little tiny shoes going da-da-da-da-da. And pretty soon my daughter's sneakers are going a little faster, and the little shoes started going a little faster too. And my daughter, remember she's 9, came tearing down that front staircase and looked at me and said, "Mama, don't ever make me go anywhere in this house by myself again." I said, "I won't, I heard footsteps." She goes, "Mama, there's a little girl up there that was grabbing the back of my leg." That was it for my daughter. Now that was a long time ago. She's grown up with babies of her own. She won't come here, and she won't let her kids come here. She did not. She had so many experiences in this house at a very young age before she learned that she had the second sight and how to protect herself. She had a few uncomfortable encounters. We'll just leave it at that. All right, so you're still in the original 1856 house, okay? And I've been with the museum doing tours for 16 years. I have been ghost hunting for 14 of them. So there was a period of 2 years that I was not into ghost hunting. There was no ghost hunters on TV. This is really early days. And I was here on a Saturday afternoon doing a day tour. I had 6 people standing over here. And the day tour is about the architecture of the building, some of the artifacts, history, and so forth. So I'm standing here talking to these folks. And over here on the sideboard at the time was an exhibit of antique cups and saucers. All of a sudden, they're dancing. They're just going da-da-da-da-da. And I don't know what this is. I really don't want to know what this is. So I went like this and I said to myself, "Hurry up and say what you got to say and get out of here." And I talk faster and faster, and the dishes are rattling harder and harder. And all of a sudden, one teacup went up in the air, flipped over, and came back down. I was done. I looked at my guests, and their eyes were bigger than mine. And I said, "Shall we move on?" And they're like, "Okay." I have to hand it to them. After this, they went on the whole tour. We did the first floor, we did the second floor, we did the attic. Every room we walked into, as soon as we'd crossed the threshold, something in the room fell on the floor. It happened room after room after room. At the end of every tour, we come down that front staircase, and the very last room is across the hall, and that's the old doctor's office. So I'm bringing them down the front staircase, and I'm announcing, "And now we're going to the doctor's office." I turned left, they turned right, went straight out that door and said, "No, we're done." And I never saw them again. I think they had their fill of the May Stringer house. For 24 years, big families rented this house for the obvious reason. If you had 6, 8, 10 kids, a 14-room house was perfect. The second factor was, even back then, this house rented for $100 a month. When was the last time you rented anything for $100? Right? Okay. So big families would rent it. I got to meet a gentleman in his 40s one Saturday afternoon. He was in a tour group. It wasn't my tour. And I overheard him tell somebody, "I lived here when I was 8 years old."
Wow.
I grabbed him right out of that group and I said, "Guess what? You just got yourself a private tour with me. I'll take you wherever you want to go. And you're going to tell me what it was like to be 8 living here." They were here, rented here in the 1960s. And he was one of 6 children. The day the family moved in, there was a knock at the front door. The mom went to answer it, and it was the mailman. And he looked at her and he said, "You're not moving in here." And she said, "Well, yes, we are." He said, "Well, you're not going to stay. Everybody in Brooksville knows this house is haunted." She said, "Listen, mister, I got 6 kids and the price is right. We're going to stay." They managed to hang on for 11 months. And those are his words. The night before they moved out, the family had been out for the evening. When they came home, they opened the front door and the lights weren't working in the house. Well, that wasn't such a big deal, except they could hear this god-awful noise upstairs. There were chains rattling and the wind was howling and someone was screaming. It was just terrible noise. So the father said to the mother, "Stay outside with the kids." He grabbed the family dog and a baseball bat and headed in the front door. The dog wouldn't cross the threshold. He bolted. So the father starts up the front staircase with nothing but a baseball bat. He gets to the top of the stairs. All the noise stopped. and every light in this house went on simultaneously. He said that was the last straw, they were done. The next morning they gave no notice, they simply packed up and left. So I asked him on his way out the door, I said, "You're in your 40s. This happened when you were 8. What took you so long to come back here?" He says, "Lady, I had to grow up and be a big boy. I wasn't ready to come back here." Understood, sir. All right, we're going to visit the old cookhouse next.
There's a mannequin here. in case
Yes,
anyone
there
gets
is.
spooked.
That's not creepy at all.
Oh, I'm dizzy in here.
Oh, I don't think you live in
And all kinds of stuff's been going on ever since we started the transition. They sure do. All right. Shall I go on?
Absolutely.
All right.
Of course.
Okay. This is one of 3 areas of the house that has the most paranormal activity. The very first piece of evidence, all those years ago, 14 years now, was from this room. They had a night vision camera set up over there. It was pointing in this direction, and they captured a light anomaly going back and forth sideways across the room. Then they got a series of clicks and bangs in accordance with whatever questions they were asking. I don't really know, but they got so excited. This group was out of Fort Lauderdale. They got so excited about what they got, they came back 5 more times. So they did 6 investigations. Then I found out they were the TAPS affiliate for Florida.
Oh.
So they worked with TAPS. In fact, the leader of their group became a TAPS member and was on Ghost Hunters International. I don't know if you guys go back that far.
Yeah.
His name was Rob. Well, he started with the Florida Ghost team down in Fort Lauderdale. They were the first ones here, and they said to us, "You guys are broke." I said, "Yes, we are. And you are so haunted, it's ridiculous. Why aren't you doing ghost tours? This would really help your museum." So that's what started the whole ball rolling.
Ah.
Now there are 3 areas of this house, as I told you, that have more activity. And now that we're in transition, half of this exhibit has already been moved. This exhibit has been like this for 30 years, and all of a sudden we're moving it, and they don't like it. So pay attention to that later tonight, and at least do some quiet vigils. If any of you are ex-military, that's even better. When we have veterans come in, it gets really crazy in here. So anyway, we've been investigated by 70 different ghost hunting teams over these 14 years. They've come from as far away as Houston and Chicago. We're national now. Nice. Yay. And as I was telling you before, we are now rated one of the top 5 most haunted places in Florida. All right, I'm going to take you upstairs, and we're going to take the back staircase. Those are the ones I want you to be especially careful of.
Okay.
They are the original stairs from the 4-room house John May built. Dr. Stringer left them there and built around them, and they became the servant stairs. They are very steep, they are very narrow, and they slant to one side. So just hold the handrails, please. You get this "I'm going to tip over" feeling when you're going up.
Okay.
All right? Follow me.
Joy.
Big step up.
Like 300 Melbourne, Wisconsin. This is how the stairs go.
This place has got like...
You said first one on the right?
So you have to really pay attention.
Trying to get you.
All right, so this is the Stringer's bedroom. Dr. and Mrs. Stringer shared this room. This was a haven for Mrs. Stringer. Downstairs, her husband practiced medicine in the same house they were living in. So she had the public traipsing through her house at all hours of the day and night, depending on their medical needs. So the only place she could have absolute privacy was up here. She'd come up here, shut the door, and be by herself. She would have had a writing desk here. She would have had her sewing things and any of her hobbies. This would have been her one place she could go. It's also what I call James's room. James was a young man who visited here. He was a guest in this house right after World War I. Now, before he went off to war, he was engaged to be married. When he came back stateside, he was staying here and got the news that the young lady married someone else while he was gone and never told him.
Oh.
This young man was heartbroken, so much so that his life ended here. Now, I found his obituary in the Tampa Tribune from 1919. And they were very kind to him and to the Stringers. They said that a decorated war hero died suddenly in Brooksville. They did not say he hung himself in the attic of the Stringer house, but that is what happened. He was staying in this room, so he's centered here. Now, he's still with us 99 years later because he committed what he felt was the ultimate sin, which was suicide. And his version of hell is to stay where he committed this sin and pay for it over and over again. Now, James and I have become good friends. By the way, James isn't his real name, but he has family in the area, and we don't bandy his real name about. He used to throw things at me every time I'd come in the museum. We have to come in the military room there to disarm the alarm system. So this World War I poster of Uncle Sam used to go flying across the room every time I come in. I couldn't figure out, who's doing this? Why are you doing this? And then one day I brought some guests in here after hours, and we came in the back door, and there goes Uncle Sam, right across the room. Only this time it smashed on the floor. The glass broke, the frame broke, and I lost my temper. And I'm yelling at thin air in front of my guests, look what you did, you broke the damn thing, now what are we gonna do? You gotta quit throwing stuff at me. Well, this gentleman in my group in his 70s grabs his chest, his eyes are bugging straight out, and I'm thinking, I just gave this dude a heart attack. He looks at me and he goes, it's because you're not paying attention. And then he stepped back and he said, I'm sorry, I don't know why I said that. I said, I do. I got the message. Whoever you are, you're my friend, and I will say hello to you. Just don't throw stuff anymore. So he doesn't throw stuff anymore, and every time I come in, I say hello to him and to everybody else here. And he lets me know by doing this to the top of my head. That's his signal to me that he's with me, which is way less destructive than throwing pictures around, okay? So I gave him the name James. He goes on all my tours. He goes on all the tours. He's been hanging out here a really long time. And he really likes women a lot.
How old is he?
He was probably like 21 when he died. So, on behalf of the museum, at this point on every tour, I apologize in advance in case any of you ladies were touched inappropriately this evening. His favorite thing is grabbing butts.
Alright.
So, and it doesn't give the gentleman in the group any free license to grab butts and blame it on James.
Who's James?
I can see this, where this is going right now. All right, we're going to go across the hall back to the old part of the house.
James.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Did he grab your head tonight when you walked in?
Oh,
Every time?
When I come in to clean, I'm the cleaning lady too.
Oh.
Secretary of the board, director of the night. We're all volunteers here and we have multiple jobs.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I'm here a lot, and he's been doing this a lot to my head. So,
Right across.
and I'll tell you, if I forget to talk about him on a tour, he will drive me nuts.
Yeah.
He will make me bring you all back in there and tell you.
Whoa.
Yeah, you're back in the 1856.
This is cool.
This is John and Marina May's master bedroom, and later on Frank and Marina Saxon. So this is the original master bedroom. It was right outside this window during the early days of investigating that I had my first realization. So it was, as I said, it was early days. In fact, it was the Fort Lauderdale group I was with that thought I had gone completely plumb crazy, because I kept telling them, I don't see spirit with my eyes like my mother and my daughter. I see them inside my head. And I knew there was a man standing on this porch right up here, and he was looking through this window. We were sitting on the first floor porch. They had Command Central. In those days they ran wires and they had monitors and cameras everywhere. And we're looking at the monitors, and I'm pointing to the camera in this room. There's two women in here with all these ghost hunting gadgets. I don't do gadgets, obviously. And they're hoodooing around trying to conjure up a ghost. And I'm pointing at him, and I said to Rob, see these two? And he goes, yeah. I said, there's a man right outside the window from where they're standing. He's not 3 feet from them, and they don't know he's there. And he's laughing because they're entertaining him. Well, he thought I was really the crazy woman from the museum, and I'm very proud to say I earned that title. So he just ignored me. About 12:30 that night, 2 people came out of the house and they wanted to go back to the hotel. So I said to them, would you please humor me and go out in that parking lot and point one of those bazillion-dollar cameras at the second floor porch and take a picture? And they did. This is 12:30 at night. The next day on their website is the first and one of the only full-bodied apparitions ever captured at the May Stringer house. Guess who it was? My guy standing right where I said he was. Well, I had to fight them to get the picture. They copyrighted it and they didn't want to give us credit for it. So finally, I had a young man on a tour one night and I was whining as usual that I had this fabulous picture and I couldn't show it to anybody. And he came up to me after the tour and he goes, I know how to get that. I said, don't say another word. Here's my email address. Sure enough, a couple days later, I got an email from him and there it was. And I printed it out and it's downstairs in the Book of Fame. So you're all welcome to take a look at it.
Awesome.
And it's, by the way, it's the guy I showed you his picture downstairs, Frank Simpson.
Oh.
All right, folks, come this way.
Oh no. Oh no.
All right, so this is my favorite room. This is hotspot number 2, Jessie May's bedroom. She was born in this room. She died in this room. Her mama died in this room and countless others over 150 years. If there were ever layers of energy in a room, it's here. This is where the women and the children are. And there are more children besides the 3-year-old. Case in point, this baby right here. She's one of the oldest artifacts in the entire museum. She predates the Civil War. She was the beloved baby of a little girl about 5 years old. Found that out the hard way. I used to touch her cheek on day tours when I talked about her. And one day, my daughter, who's attached to my left leg, says, Mama, I said, what? And she said, there's a little girl standing next to you, and she told me to tell you that she hates it when you touch her baby. And it's a baby, don't call it a doll. I'm like, okay. So, she's a baby, don't call her a doll. Obviously, you're in a museum, everything is no touch. That's understood, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And unfortunately, the only chairs that you're allowed to sit in are right in the entryway. So when you're doing your vigils, you're going to have to sit on the floor. All right, number 3 hotspot is next up, and it's Tammy's turn to take over because it's in the attic and I don't go there.
What?
There's an entity up there that I have had 3 physical conversations with over the years. It's the only time or place or entity that I just don't deal with. I nicknamed him Mr. Nasty. He was an actor. He arrived here years ago with the donation of an actor's trunk that was built in 1885. He's pissed off because it's here. It's not where he left it. He just doesn't realize that was over 100 years ago. Whoever he gave it to is dead too. So ever since it came here, he used to rage around as a black mist, but now he's pretty much just me. He doesn't like women, and particularly alpha women, so he really doesn't like me. In fact, they did an EVP one night and asked him, who did he love to hate the most? And he said Bonnie. So I'm like, okay, I have a really good reason not to go up there. So take it away, Tammy.
Do you know?
I will see you all back downstairs and we can take a look at the Book of Fame.
All right, so if you look directly above you, you'll see an opening in the ceiling. There's a little hatch. There is another room beyond that plexiglass. When you're in the parking lot and you see that red tower with the windows going around it, that's where that leads. That's the 4th floor. They will refer to it as the Widow's Walk or the cupola. Most likely it was used for ventilation. Now it seems like a harmless room enough, but it does have its own story. Now if you think back a couple of rooms when Bonnie was talking about James, if there was actually a man that was staying in the house and killed himself by hanging, that would be the most logical spot that would happen in. I hate to do this to you, and as morbid as it sounds, try and put yourself in his shoes for just a second, just to kind of get the right mindset. Now imagine you are that young man who is completely devastated. You know, you had that one person that was making you happy, that helped you survive the war. With the thought of that woman, that was what was helping you get home. And that was your happy thought. and it's just been ripped away. And he felt that he was heartbroken. His heart was broken into pieces. He felt like he just couldn't go on. He felt there was literally nothing to live for anymore. Now, he comes to that conclusion one day that he's, you know, that's it. There's nothing left for him. So he made that decision. He climbs the stairs. He goes up to the 4th floor, ties the rope, puts it around his neck, drops down, and in that instant realizes what he just did. And he's struggling and he's suffering and he can't breathe. And he wishes he could change his mind, but he can't because it's already too late. It's over. There's been so nights that it's been so thick up here that I've had to stop talking in the middle of a tour because I physically couldn't get any words out. You know, it can happen. Some nights it's perfectly fine. Other nights you just really can't breathe. But usually once we go beyond this door and go into the attic itself, the feeling changes. Completely different story, different entity. I've been here 2.5 years, and the time I've been here, you know, you can notice it yourself as you're walking through the house. Every single room has its own personality. It's got a different vibe. You can feel different things. The energy in there is different. And yeah, like Bonnie was saying, people do feel very uncomfortable in there. I've seen it target mostly women. I have had women leave my tours even during the day because they feel physically ill. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it has. So there's a potential for that. So now that I have made you feel completely comfortable, that is where we're going to go next. That's fine. That's fine. Creepy door effect because we have to. So welcome to the attic. This would be hotspot number 3. This is one of my personal favorites because yes, I am that creepy weird person. This, in my opinion, is the most active room in the entire house, and it is because of the man that Bonnie refers to as Mr. Nasty. Everybody else calls him Gary. Don't know where that name came from. Somebody started calling him that, and it just kind of caught on. The energy up here, I don't think he's a bad guy, but he tends to be very moody, sarcastic, definitely a bit of a prankster. We get multitudes of EVPs. And those EVPs mostly contain the words "get out" or various forms of curse words. I have heard with my own ears the F word on numerous occasions. He has directly called people assholes, and use your imagination, he likes to say bad things. That's just who he is. This right here is our 1890s theatrical or dresser style trunk. It's very unique, it's very rare. It's one of the coolest pieces that we have in here. Unfortunately, when we get items that are donated to us, we don't always get the backstory of it. Most of the time people find something when they're cleaning out a shed or a storage unit and it belonged to their family, but they don't really know what it was for or who it belonged to, and they have no use for it, so they give it to us, which is cool, but we have nothing to really talk about. But we do know that once we acquired this trunk, the activity up here dramatically increased. There's girls that say that they feel like they get their hair pulled. We get knocking noises. Last night, this has happened on multiple occasions, but it happened last night. I had a group up here, and we were just sitting around with the door shut and the lights were off, and we heard somebody coming up the stairs. So we looked out the door and there was nobody there. So you never know what's going to happen, and you cannot force it to happen. It's not a dog and pony show. If they feel like interacting with you, well then great. You have a great story to tell. But some nights it's very quiet, but I have a feeling tonight won't be that way. Again, just from what I've seen so far in the last hour we've been here, yeah, so you never know what's going to happen. Now, I do have to show you one thing before you guys go back downstairs, because typically on a regular 2-hour tour, we make you come up here with me, but since you guys have rented the house out all night, this is your show. So follow me real quick. I just have to show you something to avoid. You can go through the entire attic. You can go back here. However, and yes, there are creepy mannequins. Do not let that scare you. Now, if you notice, there's a couple of floorboards that aren't entirely there. Just watch your step. If you stay on the carpeted area, you'll be fine. You know, just use a flashlight. Just be really, really careful. We'd rather you did not leave with a broken ankle. We want you to have a good time, not a painful
Fall
one.
through the ceiling.
We directly below us is the office.
I'm sorry, that scared the hell out of me.
Yeah, it's a Halloween prop.
Oh my God.
Directly below us is the office, and if you look on the ceiling,
Thank you.
there is a broken part in the ceiling because somebody did put their foot in there, and it went through to the second floor.
Oh.
So just letting you know.
Okay.
Now you can come up here and sit. Any of the chairs you are allowed to sit in, that's fine. This room and the foyer are the only rooms that you can actually sit on the furniture. Just avoid the bed. The frame is not completely stable, so you'll wind up back on the floor.
Oh, nice.
Trust me, I know from personal experience. I was on the floor as soon as I sat down, basically. So, all right, we're gonna head that way.
Oh, oh, oh.
Actually, I can go in front of you because I want to show you one more cool thing.
Okay. This floorboard's about to fall through.
We can come back out here, but I think you'll want to see this. Now, we do have over 11,000 donated artifacts in the museum because it was abandoned. It went through several families, so we don't have most of the things that belong to the families. However, about 2 years ago, somebody came through with a metal detector in the yard, about 5 foot square. Just a very small area, just on the corner of the property, so it didn't tear anything up. And this is what they dug up. This was found on the property. Who knows how long it's been there for. But you can see kind of the lives that they were living. It's kind of interesting to put it in perspective. You have that came from a pocket watch, a money clip, that came from a lantern, a spoon handle, harmonica. That's actually a button from a military uniform. That, I've been told, is possibly a handcuff key. And if you look over here, there's all kinds of shotgun shells.
Yeah.
So there is evidence that there was a gun being shot for some reason. It was shooting at something or someone, hunting, or this was also Civil War time. We don't really know. But something was definitely being shot at.
Yeah.
So, all right, back downstairs.
Woo!
This house was condemned and going to be torn down in 1979. Our nonprofit volunteer group was formed at that time. We raised the money to purchase the property. We spent 3 years and $300,000 in materials just to get it to the point where it was safe to open as a museum. All of the artifacts are after the Stringers and everyone lived here. These were all donated by area residents, which is really amazing considering there's 11,000 of them.
Yeah.
All right, so this is the doctor's office. It was a very common thing in the late 1800s that doctors practiced medicine in the same house they lived in. And that was the case here. So Dr. Stringer added this room. There were 2 generations of Dr. Sheldon Stringer. There was senior and then junior after. So a doctor was in residence from late 1800s until the early 1920s. This is the last room on the tour. You're all welcome to take a look at the Book of Fame. There's some pretty interesting pictures on there. All right, and then you're on your own.
Okay.
All right. So we're going to go back this way. And as long as my voice holds out, they're like, it's the real deal here.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, so as you can see, it's a very expensive book. we're all volunteers. This is a low budget operation.
Pasco.
Yeah, it is.
2014, this picture was taken in the parlor with a camera that had been turned off. The lady who had come for the 2-hour tour, it was 10 o'clock, she was on her way out, shut off her camera, it turns itself back on and takes this picture. This is a big old blood stain.
Yeah, I just.
And,
Well, I can't
but
really
the
get it.
thing is, there is no blood stain there.
That's crazy. It's right here.
This picture was taken 2 weeks to the day after the murder of our executive director. This woman was bludgeoned to death in her home by her live-in boyfriend.
Wow.
And when the police found her body, it was just in that position, and she was in blood.
Wow.
She was unrecognizable. She used to help me do ghost tours in the early days, and we used to talk about it. How are we going to communicate from the other side? So I took this as a personal communication from her. This is what that son of a bitch did to me, and somebody needs to pay for this. The guy got 60 years in jail, and he'll never get out. But anyway, so that one kind of means a lot to me.
Yeah.
This one was during the restoration of the Stringer's bedroom upstairs. 4 people were working in the room. It's daytime, and they saw these light anomalies with the naked eye. One lady just grabbed her iPhone and took the pictures. Wow. But you can see there's a big one there. These things were just floating around in the room. And the 4 volunteers that were working there were not ghost hunters. They were like, holy crap, what is this? Which is nice because it attests to the fact that daytime or nighttime, spirit doesn't care. When they do their thing, they're going to do their thing.
Yeah.
And at one point, some lady came to me at the end of a ghost story and she says, I paid $20 and I did not see a ghost. I said, it ain't a dog and pony show. You know, I can't say, all right, everybody, on cue now. You know, it doesn't work that way. This was during a late night investigation in Jesse's room. We had 2 investigators. They had some trigger objects and a couple gadgets. And you see the little person dancing there? This little being just appeared and they snapped a picture of it. This is a pair of legs in the doctor's office. They usually aren't walking across the floor. Early days, before in ghost hunting, my 9-year-old had to go to the bathroom one day and she was here with me, so I, of course, had to go with her. We walked into the doctor's office and there's a very old wheelchair in there, World War I era.
It's so cool.
And she looked at it and she goes, Mama, there's half a soldier in that chair. I said, what do you mean half? She goes, just the bottom half. She says, and his leg's ripped open and it's nasty. And he told me that he wouldn't let him take his leg off, so he died.
Wow.
My 9-year-old, you know? No wonder the kid didn't want to come here. Now this is the lady in the kitchen. This is the original picture. It was a daytime tour and a group of school teachers. And this lady just pops up and appears right between these 2 women. Our curator blew it up and lightened it, but you can see her there. She is not real, and she appears right between the 2 women, and then she walked, right after the picture was taken, she walked through the wall into the old gift shop, and those 2 women were out of here. They come piling out. Ghost! This is the day that the cradle got broken, and this is the dress that the baby's wearing, and this is the trunk that he put her in, and you can see this huge black mist is all over it. So we have white mist, we have black mist, we have music playing, we have people talking, we have, you name it, we've had it here. Probably the coolest thing was we had a brand new group like you guys, and the minute the leader of the group set foot inside the house, that plaque over there on the organ flew across the room and crashed to the floor. Well, we're used to it.
Great.
He looked at me and his eyes were this big and he goes, what do you think that means? And I kept a deadpan face and I said, they don't like you. Poor kid, he sweat profusely the whole night. I gotta put this down. So I don't do that anymore.
They probably don't like you.
I'm gonna put this one on the floor, honey, because it's gonna...
Oh, I'm sorry, okay.
That's quite all right. So that's the Book of Fame. You've seen the house. You know where you can go.
All right.
Awesome. Time to set up and go dark.
Why do you seem so scared? All I wanted to do was play with you. Please come and play with me. I am so lonely. You're not afraid of the dark, are you? Don't be afraid.